and the cleaners just turned on the vacuum. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that always how it goes?
Hey, strangely, I don't have access to the dock. Don't know why.
I'll fix that. Make sure everybody's on it.
No sweat.
Okay, so welcome to December 12, 2020 wasmCloud community meeting. So we've got 2 new members, I think, only 1 dialing in today. Jordan, you want to take a quick minute and introduce yourself?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, caught me off guard. Hi, Jordan Rash. I am here more or less to learn and see what this community is doing because of everything I've read. It's exciting. I'm mostly a security analyst background, but you know, we're all here to learn new things. So thanks for having me. I know most of you. Hi, Bill.
Hey, Jordan. Nice to see you.
Awesome. And we've got someone else joined, Warren, who was going to try to make the call. Maybe he's running a little bit late. We gave him a chance to introduce himself a little bit later. And we're gonna start a new format based on some feedback from last time. We're gonna try to start each meeting with a great demo. Well, let me not qualify that with a demo. Doesn't have to be a great demo because I don't want to set expectations too high. So why don't we turn it on over to Brooks, who's going to talk about the new REPL functionality. And let me give you presenter Brooks. Sorry about that.
Sounds great.
Floor is yours.
All right. You all should be able to see my little terminal screen here. Let me know if you can't. So today I'm going to be showing off a couple more things for the WASH shell, the wasmCloud shell. As you can see, we have a beautiful new ASCII banner here for the new rebranding. So marvel at that as you will. Now, I've shown off this shell a little bit before, just to give a brief overview. What this shell was created for is to consolidate all the command line tools that we had for WASH or for wasmCloud into a single binary so that it's a lot simpler and a lot easier to get started with wasmCloud and to develop in the long term. So originally, the first things that we consolidated into this were keys and claims, which these 2 subcommands were used for creating signing keys and signed JWTs for securely signing actors and capability providers. We now have the par subcommand for packaging and signing capability providers in an efficient compression format. 2 new commands that I can show you today are the cuddle command, which it is pronounced that way, and it is how you interact with a wasmCloud control interface, which is a new fancy way of saying that we're interacting with the wasmCloud lattice. And the main subject of this demo today is the up command, which is an interactive REPL for doing wasmCloud development that really makes it easier to quickly iterate on what you're doing and get immediate feedback for when you're developing with wasmCloud. So I'll go ahead and get started and show you what this REPL looks like. Right when you launch this REPL, you're greeted with a couple of different panes here. So the main ones up at the top are the REPL, which takes in your input, and any command output shows on the right. And then on the bottom, we have a really powerful logging widget that allows you to view all of the different levels of logs that are coming out of your programs while you're developing. And you can also adjust the verbosity of these logs if something is being too noisy or you want to really hone in on one thing. For example, you can see a couple of trace messages from Nat's subscriber. We can drop that down to debug to hide those overly verbose messages. This is really nice because when you're doing wasmCloud development, there's going to be messages coming from all over the place, from the host, from your actors, providers, etc. So it's really nice to be able to manually control this to however verbosity you want. Now, just to show you some of the things that this REPL is set up to do, we can type in help to get some nice helpful help text here for the different subcommands in the shell. What I really want to show you today is how easy it is to start and stop capability providers and link them together. And we can also gather some more information about what's running in the lattice currently. So to get started, we can see what hosts are currently running. we can see that we have one host, which was launched automatically when the REPL launched so that we can do some local development. We can take a look at the inventory of this host, which is pretty empty as we'd expect it. By default, this host comes with a couple of different labels for what kind of operating system architecture it's running on. I added an additional one called REPL mode. What these are for are when you schedule your actors and providers, you can specify what hosts they want to be scheduled on by running them through an auction and having them be assigned to a host. Very similar to when you schedule a pod in Kubernetes and you have taints and tolerations to decide where it goes. So to go ahead and get started, I want to show you what it looks like to run an actor on this host using this REPL. So the start command is how you start any actor or provider. You can also take a look at all of these commands. They have additional help text for if you forget what you're putting in here. But to start an actor here, we just simply have to give it either a path to a local actor on disk or an OCI compliant registry link for an actor. So I have one already pushed up to the Azure container registry that we have called KV counter. And I have two options here. I can either directly schedule it on this host, or if I simply just issue this command, the start actor command is going to run an auction for where this actor would be best placed. The first host that I get back from that, which will be my only host since I had provided no constraints, is where it gets scheduled. So that's it. You can see in our output that we say which actor has been started, what the actor's public key is, and there's additional information down in the logs you can take a look at too. So if we take a look at the host inventory again, we can see we have one running actor in here, the KV counter actor. So being able to immediately issue this command and it gets scheduled on a local host is super powerful and much easier than I remember having to, as far as like a quick start. You could run this anywhere. There's nothing local that I'm using other than the wash binary. So this is much, much easier. And the process for starting a provider is largely the same. So I can also use an OCI compliant artifact here, like our Redis provider, for example. And I can schedule that directly onto this host. The providers are a little bit bigger, so I've supplied this flag just to make sure we have plenty of time, which we didn't need to use. And you can do the same thing over and over to schedule things onto this host. So I'll also do the same thing for an HTTP server provider. Go ahead and schedule that onto this host. And then after that finishes up, we can also check out the host inventory and look at our new shiny providers that have been scheduled there. Now, the next part of doing wasmCloud development locally is going to link these. You need to link the actor to the provider so that they can communicate with each other. So that's as simple as taking the actor public key that we've gotten back after we schedule it, specifying the capability contract that we connect them with, which is just how the actor knows what protocol it's communicating with the provider here.
I think
I heard somebody come up
that contract ID.
Go ahead, Kevin. Sorry.
You need an underscore in between key and value for that contract ID.
Thanks. And then we can also provide any additional configuration that we need. Like for this key value for talking to Redis, we need a local Redis URL. So I believe that is just this. Simple as that. We've linked this actor and this provider together. Now we can do the same thing, which is going to be to the HTTP server. One thing that we're actively working on is, oops, oh God, what did I forget? Address already in use. I might have, there we go. I think I might have just put in an extra character somewhere. So one thing we're working on, instead of me having to go around and copy the actor public key and the provider public key for these links, we will be able to link to them by their OCI reference. So the azurecr.io/Redis, for example. And if we take a look at the host inventory here, nothing changes, for example, but our links are present there so that the actor and the provider can talk to each other. Now I'm going to try something. We will see if the demo gods have decided to stop smiting me for today, because immediately before this demo, I tried to curl this actor and it didn't work. I figure it wouldn't end up going through, but I had to try for the live demo. So it looks like there's going to be more that I can show you next week for the full developer experience, but this really simplifies what we were doing earlier with, I mean, it may be easy to start up a project by writing it in Rust, but being able to have this immediate feedback in the REPL is huge. And anybody can do this. I don't have anything, like I said, I don't have anything on my computer that is, you know, these capability providers or actors. It's all pulled from a remote source. So we can really easily get people to run our examples as well.
Yeah, we sort of imagine that this REPL will be a great tool for getting people introduced to wasmCloud and dealing with actors and providers and how it all works. But once you start building actors or building providers, we figure this will probably be an invaluable tool to just have open all the time in another terminal so that you can poke and prod the stuff that you're building.
Brooks, I thought that was an incredible demo. Thank you so much. Ralph, I know you got a appeal. Well, real quick, I guess, any questions for Brooks or anybody you want a discussion or feedback or comments for him?
Bro, kudos. Looks great.
Yeah, it's amazing. I can't wait to start using it all day long.
Awesome. Well, let's keep the feedback up, and any features you guys would like, or anything in there. You know, we want to build stuff that people want to use, and you have an evidence-driven roadmap. Ralph, I think you need to peel, so you want to maybe pivot over to you real fast, and then we can let you get out.
Sure. Just real quick, we'll postpone Chris, you know, working on the docs for Critical Stack and Crestlet and so forth for this coming week. So we'll make sure we have that done. And I wanted to call out the blog list that we had discussed last week. We've got a HackMD there. Everybody should be able to add things so you can test it and see if it actually works. If you refresh that, I think we just published, we've added, let me see if it works. Sure enough, the post host for the first one is the real link to the blog because we just published that. So you get the idea, we're just basically going to add these as you see fit. Taylor here is going to publish one that's more on Rust and not quite as much on WASM. That'll be in there. But we're just going to sort of fill out, and anybody can post anything, all the interests. I'm going to sort of start adding the ideas that we have over the next coming 2-3 months to this. And so it's just free form. I'm not expecting there's any problem other than if I screwed up some of the permissions or something, which is entirely possible. So I just wanted to call that out, make it available to everybody, and power on. And I got to run.
Thank you so much, Ralph. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Ralph.
Great week.
Cheers.
Cheers. Okay, coming back up to the top here, just a quick note about WASM time. The Thanksgiving Day meeting was canceled, of course. So the next meeting is tomorrow at 1 o'clock. If anybody wants to get looped up on that, just ping me and I'll add you. There's a meeting agenda for that already posted. And there's a pull request in place for the RFC. It's basically the RFC for the RFCs, the meta RFC. I'll give you guys an update next week, but there's a number of things listed on the agenda that are interesting to us around WASI-NN, which is the Intel contributed machine learning stuff, potentially being merged in, and a few other things. Those are no different than what we updated on last week. And then I real quick wanted to see if one of our folks here from the team would want to talk about this introducing Yo Wasm post that I saw get dropped today. Anybody want to speak to this on the call?
I can, if nobody else does. So one of our engineers who's in New Zealand and consequently could never make this call has been working on a framework for scaffolding out WebAssembly projects very, very easily in a way that integrates with Visual Studio Code and provides support for a number of different languages. So Ivan's been working on this as his sort of Research Friday project for the last several weeks or so, and got it to the point where we felt pretty comfortable releasing it. It currently has support for C, Rust, and assembly script. We're working on adding support for Swift now that Swift WASI is working pretty well. And it's kind of a nice little plug-in based generator, very easy to modify. He designed it so that we could continue to add new features as we go. And again, the point was to basically make it as trivial as possible, given the state of the tool chain, for a developer to set up a WebAssembly compiler and environment for their particular language. So I think by the end, Ivan had it integrated with the VS Code debugger and had the default set of VS Code actions. I never can remember what those things are called for compiling and things like that. And had support for a couple different frameworks, including, last I checked, it was just WASC and WASI, but I think he might have had vanilla WASM with neither of those enabled. So it's pretty cool. I'm really glad that he released that and wrote up a pretty good blog post about how that works.
On top of that, I think there's also support for GitHub Actions that automatically push to container registries that support WebAssembly modules. So for people who do push WASC modules or wasmCloud modules to WebAssembly, to container registries, it might be of interest as well.
Very cool stuff. Is there any time here to, what Phil's doing with his WAPC, generator stuff? I feel like there's a little bit of an overlap between some of the work there. Is there any potential to collaborate on that?
Yeah, I think how it would work is the Yeoman generator would just call out to the external generator to do that work. That's kind of the way the Yeoman world typically works. So it should be pretty easy to integrate the two if we want to do that.
There could be a plugin specifically for generating WAPC compliant modules.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah. Well, I wonder, Kevin, maybe we'll take this offline if there's if maybe we should look at leveraging Yeoman, because we get all the other stuff for free. And if we get all the VS Code and all the other things, we'd need to really just think about how that could help.
Yeah, the trick is to figure out which tool is the parent and which one is the child, because WAPC has its own scaffold generator that it uses for code generation. But yeah, it's definitely worth looking into. I'd like to have some form of uniform way of creating all these different libraries.
We'll just throw another log on the backlog, and we'll see if that one ever makes it to the fire to burn down. So let me see here. Yeoman/WPC generator. Okay, awesome. So I think right now we can go into, we got some to-do review here. Share my screen. A couple of just run right through these. I think Radu and Brooks, did you guys have a chance to look at that that pull request that you guys discussed last week?
I think there was another round of reviews. I'm not sure if it was merged just yet.
Okay. Anything we can all help with, or do you need any support or anything?
Not that I know of. I think, and I should probably let Taylor talk about this some more, but I think it's in a state where we could look at actually merging it without committing to anything right now.
I mean, I was leaving this up to you, Radu. So if it's good with you, we might as well merge it. So
do you want to check the magic 8-ball first? Is that on the agenda? I think I got like a 30-sided die over here. We could roll for a crit.
If you're, the thing is, Radu, is since you know more from the OCI side, if you are okay with it, I am okay with it. I think I did tell you why the tests were failing, Brooks, in some chat somewhere. There's 3 Crustlet channels I have to check: internal, Kubernetes, and wasmCloud. So in one of those places, I think I mentioned what the pot, or maybe it was on the GitHub issue. Anyway, I mentioned it somewhere about what I think your issue with the test was. But as soon as those tests pass, as long as Radu's okay with it, Radu can go ahead and hit the merge button. I'm fine with that.
Okay, I might need to double check on what that was. I know there was an issue when I first submitted the PR that like some runner was out of date or something like that. So
yeah,
Taylor,
we fixed that. I think if you rebase, that particular issue is going to be fixed.
Okay, then I will take a look at that and then touch base with either Taylor or you, Radu. I'll put it in the Crustlet channel in the wasmCloud Slack.
All the things. All right. Thanks, everybody. So the links, by the way, for Ralph's blog post list are here and linked on the agenda. Also, tweet those out from all the accounts just to try to get some attention on those. I guess we're now down back to the .15 review. I don't know if anybody wants to start. Brooks is out for the rest of the year on holiday. I'm sorry, Chris is out for the rest of the year on holiday, but Kevin, Bill, anybody want to start?
I can give just a quick recap. We're still basically just finishing up the last few touches on the control interface stuff. Right now, we've got auctions being tested, and we're working on those. And the live update stuff is now in. We're just I just need to set up some Docker scripts so that I can make sure that all the live update stuff gets tested properly. But other than that, that's all good to go. There's a couple of distributed systems type issues that we need to take care of, but none of those look insurmountable either. So it's all going well.
Are there any in particular you want to just speak to as an overview?
I got kind of the high level distributed systems issue is when you're running as a lattice, there's some information that the hosts are sharing with each other and some that they aren't. And that's currently creating a problem and producing some very interesting edge cases. So right now, the lattice will share its claims cache and it shares the link definitions, but it doesn't share the mapping between the OCI reference and the public keys of the things that we've retrieved from the registries. So depending on the order in which you launch things and where you launch them from, the lattice could artificially tell you that it doesn't know what you're trying to work with because the OCI mapping is stale. So there's 2 issues for that. One is the specific one to deal with replicating the OCI references. And then the other is we sort of need a more generalized, more robust way of dealing with distributed cache data. Right now it's ad hoc, and there are specific events that we use for replicating very specific pieces of data. And what we really need is probably another actor inside the wasmCloud host that deals with a distributed cache. And per our requirements for Lattice, that distributed cache system cannot be central point of failure. It cannot use single server, and it needs to work in partially disconnected mode. So there's the short-term fix, which is we're just going to manually replicate the OCI image mappings. And then as soon as that's done, we'll start looking into a more robust way of dealing with the distributed cache. I'm sure everybody's familiar with it, but this problem is something that virtually every system has. Kubernetes deals with it with things like etcd or console. And even though those things are clusterable, they are single points of failure, and that's intolerable for the lattice requirements.
Got it. Evan Baker had written E2D, which was taking etcd and trying to solve some of the management lifecycle on it. I don't know if there's some lessons learned on how to make the Kubernetes workflow simpler that we could we could learn from there.
Yeah, I mean, at a really simple level, most of the information that we're trying to distribute in a cache could be represented as add-only lists as a CRDT. So we don't necessarily need super complex, but there's some spike work to be done and some research to be done there.
How did those lists get partitioned, Kevin? Is the idea that all the things know about all the things?
So the way CRDTs work is they are perspective-based diffs. So what you replicate is a context and then a value relative to that context. And so if one host adds an OCI image map, then it adds an OCI image map to the context as seen by that host at that time. And then it would replicate that list addition and the context to the entire rest of the cluster. And then as each other item in the cluster receives both the context and the new value, it's able to resolve that in a mathematically provable way that there will be no merge conflicts.
Is there a risk of, let's say it's a giant deployment, let's say it's 1,000 or 10,000 actors running here, is there a risk of having like a list that's just gigantic, like for when you think about like the peer-to-peer context here, I'm imagining sort of like a hub and spoke model in my mind here with some central capabilities and then a lot of distributed capabilities. Let's think like the ADSB demo that we kind of like toyed around with. What if there were 1 million ADSB sensors? Would every sensor certainly wouldn't want to know about all the other peers, would it?
Yeah, so some of that is future problems that we don't really have right now. I mean, a really great problem to have is somebody in production running so many wasmCloud hosts that we need to solve for that problem, right? That would be fantastic. But by and large, the CRDT approach, those are diffs. So the impact on the wire is minimal. What you end up with is the in-memory impact of having those huge caches. And so what you would essentially need is to have each of the hosts be aware of how much information it needs to cache. So hosts that are running on an Arduino would have a different caching strategy than the full backend cloud host and so on. But again, this is all conjecture at this point. We need to do some research and spike it out and build some prototypes and see how that works.
Okay, super.
But the core idea is right now we have 2 or 3 different manually replicated bits of data. And as we start adding more features, we're going to need to replicate more data in a more reliable way. And so the existing ad hoc mechanism is not sustainable for scale.
Can I call attention to 2 of the RFCs that you kind of posted this week to maybe highlight that we would love to get some feedback from folks on the call around what we're trying to, like what the vision is here? I would start with maybe the web browser one.
Yeah, so the idea is we have So right now we have essentially one runtime, which is the Rust-based cloud runtime. And we're planning on building multiple different specialized or fit for purpose runtimes. So there'll be one. So right now you can compile the Rust runtime and target things like Raspberry Pis and other small constrained devices, but you can't do things like Arduinos or tiny edge devices. For specific host environments, we need fit for purpose runtimes, and so the two that we're thinking about are the web browser itself and Swift for iOS and Mac devices. And so we have RFCs open for ideas on what those implementations might look like, but more importantly, I wanted to make sure that we captured the things that each of these host runtimes would need to be able to do at a bare minimum. So they need to be able to connect to the lattice. They need to be able to do basic multi-threading. They need to be able to verify ED 25519 signatures. And beyond that, it's open for comments in terms of what people have as far as ideas go for implementations and designs and how that stuff will work.
Okay, thank you so much. Anybody have questions for Kevin? Super. Bill, you up next?
Hey, y'all. So this week we got a couple pull requests merged for packaging and shipping out Wash and wasmCloud as Debian and RPM packages. So currently there is AMD 64 support out there. We have ARM support built into our GitHub action that'll get triggered on release. It leaves a lot to be desired right now since GitHub Actions doesn't support ARM runners. But yeah, it's a good start. Ignore the wasmCloud version. Sorry, Kevin, that was just kind of a test. It says 1.0. Obviously, that's not the case. But yeah, everything's moving forward pretty well.
Okay, that's great. I'm going to ask everybody to hold on just 1 second because they're right outside my door. We can ask them to.
Sure thing.
Matt, could you stop? I'm on a phone call. Yeah, could you stop vacuuming? I'm just on a phone call for work. Thank you.
It's classic.
All week. They're wonderful. I'm so grateful that they still come because I do not have time for that kind of stuff. But I'm going to have to do that part of the house now myself. First world problems. I'll stop complaining. Okay, so I think, Brooks, did you have anything else you wanted to run down? Or was that all?
Yeah, that was all.
God bless it, now sneeze. It's getting worse. I guess I'd open it up. I don't know that we have anything else. Just kind of skimming down the to-do list. I guess I can go pretty fast. I think people are seeing some of the transition across repositories and web pages as everything switches into wasmCloud. I'm working on the new site and trying to get it launched as soon as I can. Right now, everything just forwards over. We also have gotten some basic, some additional metrics and monitoring up for like, Twitter and trying to just continue to drive like, announcements and features. Logo is in flight when it comes back. I'm going to get some nice hoodies ordered for everybody and t-shirts and stuff like that. And we'll get some swag, spread out as we kind of come up, on the .15 release and start looking ahead. wasmCloud is a real thing now, wasmCloud LLC. I had a follow-up with Till recently on how are things going with the foundation, because again, the ultimate goal is to, get the collection of, keep this open source and protect it. We had what I wanted to make sure that we were doing though was being good stewards. So I've registered an LLC to hold, the trademark for wasmCloud, logo, all of the domain names. We own like a dozen domain names related to wasmCloud, all of the accounts. So it's all in good order so that when the time comes, whenever this is, a year from now, who knows, where basically we have all of our ducks in a row, and it should, make getting into a foundation much easier because we have a clear chain of, ownership and all of those kind of things. But, just to, double down, there's no, like it's a holding, entity so that we have all of this together and in one place. Any questions or thoughts or suggestions about that? Okay, well, I think that is it. There's no new ADLs to open up. I think we scanned issues. There's one pull request hanging out. Kevin, and anything there to discuss? Or is that yours, waiting on feedback?
It's not really waiting on feedback. That's just the one where I need to do some Docker scripting to set up a local OCI registry to get some integration tests working.
Okay, awesome. Jared, I still owe you a follow-up on like getting together on like setting up like docs, a lot of stuff to work on together. That was on the to-do list. I skipped over it earlier because I didn't do it yet and didn't want to call attention to my failure, but we can highlight that. Definitely. Anyone else want to jump in? Anybody got anything want to share? Radu, Taylor?
I think last week you mentioned that you wanted to discuss about the networking and sockets API in WASI. I'm open to do that if anyone has specific questions about it.
You want to present anything, or do you want the floor? Or I would love that if you want to just like sketch or just speak to it even.
I think the easiest thing for people interested is I just shared the write-up that I did for it. But in short, there is a proposal in the WASI community that has been kind of stale for the last couple of months. But in short, that proposal aims to add essentially full Berkeley sockets support into the top-level WASI API. And the article that I just linked tries to do essentially a shortened down version of that, that just starts sockets in wasmTime and is able to essentially start client sockets from Rust and AssemblyScript with example implementations on how to implement the networking API from both in the Rust standard library and a brand new one in AssemblyScript. So it's not suited for server side applications. So if you want to start an HTTP server in a wasmTime host, it's probably still not a good idea, mainly because of the lack of multi-threading and other things. But for client connections, it seems to be the direction that WASI tries to take. For the record, the implementation presented here is by no means should not be used in production. It's just an example of how to do things, but it's fairly in the same direction as the official proposal, which has received fairly good feedback. So I'm more than happy to chat specifically about the implementation and other things with people interested in it. It's just at the state of an experiment right now, but hopefully the WASI community moves forward with the current proposal.
Yeah, I've got a question. I haven't looked at any of this yet. Is there the whole, like baked into this, this POC work, and hopefully that doesn't come off offensive to use the word POC work, but into this work is would I still need to, grant these capabilities, to allow this, behavior in this, branch here, or is that, work to be done yet?
This is the main reason why this is, and POC is the right word for it. It's just an experiment. The main reason why this is still a POC is that the capabilities are not hooked up into wasmTime's upstream capabilities. This just, if you choose to fork this branch, it will grant a TCP socket to any WebAssembly module that tries to open one. So that's the main reason why I'm saying this should not be used in production. But the proposal actually hooks in the capabilities, actually adds new capabilities to WebAssembly modules and defines them. And in theory, they should be plugged into wasmTime all up.
I don't know what demo we have queued up for next week, but as you've already got some, POC and some test code here, would it be worthwhile doing a walkthrough or demo next week? Would you be interested in that?
Yeah,
Definitely. I'd love to see that.
yeah, maybe like you already have all your work here and you're already running the fork branch, and maybe you could do a demo and we'd have it on video, and then we could, like share it with everybody. I'll put you down for next week if that would be great. I would love that. Who else? Anyone else have anything they want to share? Open floor. All right, going once, going twice. I'm just going to stop recording. Folks can still stay on the call though. Thank you, everybody. Have a great week.